My wife, at her sister's wedding, casually drops the bombshell that she once slept with the best man, back when we were still dating. I served her with divorce papers I never truly planned to use. This move blew up in my face. Damage control ensued. Ultimately, my wife and I have been married for 3 years. Before that, we dated for 2. So, in total, we've been a couple for 5 solid years. Or at least, that's what I used to think. Solid. Steady. Reliable. Trustworthy. We were one of those couples people like to point to and say, now that's a team. And I believed it. With every late-night conversation, every lazy Sunday morning, every road trip where we sang off-key and laughed at the same tired jokes, I believed in us. I'm 33 now. I met her at 28. I was done with the casual dating scene and searching for something serious. She was fresh out of a toxic relationship and cautious, but there was a light in her, one I felt drawn to. Her name's Melissa. And if you'd asked me just a few weeks ago, I would have told you I hit the jackpot with her. She's kind, driven, good with kids, and somehow managed to be both fierce and nurturing. She works in education policy, so you know, already a saint by career standards. We had our share of rough patches, what couple doesn't? But overall, our communication was solid. Or so I thought. 3 weekends ago, her younger sister, Julia, got married. Melissa and Julia are incredibly close. As expected, Melissa was in the wedding party, and she took it seriously. I mean, serious. 2 weeks before the wedding, she was basically living at her parents' house, helping Julia with every last detail. From flower arrangements to seating charts to making sure her future in-laws didn't kill each other before the big day. She took a few days off work that week, Tuesday to Friday, to be fully present for her sister. I didn't think twice about it. In fact, I admired it. She was doing what a good sister would do, and she kept me in the loop with little updates here and there. The caterer's allergic to lemons, can you believe that? Or Julia's panicking over whether the dresses match the napkins. Normal stuff. We didn't see each other from Tuesday to Saturday morning. I missed her, more than I expected to. Even after 5 years together, that absence still stung in a weirdly teenage kind of way. So on the morning of the wedding, I decided to show up early. Just a couple hours before the ceremony. Not to make a scene or interrupt anything, just to steal 5 minutes of her time. A quick kiss, a hug, "Hey, you look beautiful," and then I'd slip quietly into the background like a good husband. I parked outside her parents' house, figuring I'd catch her between errands or final touches. I didn't text or call, wanted it to be a surprise. She always said I was thoughtful like that. I waited in the car, engine off, watching as people buzzed in and out of the house like honeybees. Bridesmaids. Caterers. Neighbors. Her dad walked by and gave me a thumbs up. Then, finally, I saw Melissa through the window. She spotted me and immediately sent her younger brother, Caleb, out to talk to me. That was odd. Caleb jogged over and leaned in through the open passenger window. "She'll be right out," he said, a little stiff. "She just needs a second." Again, odd. A minute later, Melissa came out, still in her robe, her hair half curled, looking radiant even in the chaos. She climbed into the passenger seat and gave me a soft kiss. I smiled, expecting warmth, laughter, maybe even a moment of affectionate teasing. But instead, she just stared at the dashboard. Her fingers were fidgeting, twisting the hem of her robe, then her engagement ring. She cleared her throat. "I need to talk to you," she said quietly. "I don't want to ruin Julia's day. So please, just listen." My heart started to thump a little faster. She exhaled slowly, avoiding my eyes. "At the reception, if you still want to go after I tell you this, you might hear something. About me and the best man." I blinked. "What do you mean, hear something?" "Just something that happened a long time ago," she said. 5 years ago. Before we were married." My stomach twisted. The best man's name was Ian. I barely knew him, had maybe shaken his hand once or twice at family gatherings. Tall guy, charming, worked in finance. The kind of guy who somehow makes Cologne feel like a personality. Melissa continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "It didn't mean anything. It was just a fling. One night. We were both single. I didn't even think you'd ever meet him." She finally looked up at me. Her eyes were pleading. "I'm telling you now because I know how you get. You're not good with surprises. And I didn't want you to hear something from someone else and think I was hiding it. I just sat there, stunned. The woman I had built a life with, the one I trusted more than anyone, had just told me that she'd slept with the best man, someone I would be clinking glasses with at the reception in just a few hours. And she waited until now. The morning of the wedding. Sitting in my car. Wearing a robe that smelled like lilacs and stress. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. My thoughts were sprinting in every direction. My gut twisted with a sick kind of amusement, like the universe just delivered a cosmic punchline to a joke I didn't realize I was part of. She reached over and touched my hand. I love you. This doesn't change anything. I just wanted to be honest. But it did change something. Even if it was years ago. Even if we weren't exclusive yet. Even if it was just a fling. It changed something. Because honesty isn't always about the facts, it's about the timing. And this timing felt calculated. She said it was because I get jealous. But jealousy is just insecurity with a flashlight. And right now, she'd shined it directly into the one part of my heart I thought was safe. Again, I just kind of sat there. This was not how I thought my morning would go. You ever have one of those moments where life just pauses? Like the movie reel of your existence stops mid-frame, and everything around you goes quiet. That's how I felt in that moment, parked outside her parents' house, watching the woman I'd married 3 years ago, the woman I'd dated for 2 years before that, slide out of my car with a half-hearted smile and a confession still hanging in the air. She had just told me that she'd once had a fling with the best man of her sister's wedding party. 5 years ago, she said. Back when we weren't married. Back when she was supposedly still figuring things out. Back when, according to my math, we were already 1 year into our relationship. I didn't let on, though. Didn't cause a scene. Just nodded like the good guy I've always tried to be. Told her I appreciated the honesty. Told her it didn't matter now. Except it did. I watched her walk back into the house, still in her satin robe, still looking like the kind of woman people write songs about. But in my head, something had shifted. A tiny crack had formed in the foundation I thought was rock solid. I drove off to get lunch. My appetite was gone, but eating gave me something to do. I sat in the corner of this little diner, phone in hand, trying to convince myself that I was overthinking everything. That she just got the timeline wrong. That it didn't mean anything. But as I scrolled mindlessly through my feed, her words replayed in my mind like a broken record. It happened 5 years ago. And that's when my memory started doing the thing it does, pulling at threads I thought were long buried. About a year and a half into our relationship, she got weird. Not crazy weird, just off. Less present. Less reachable. She'd always been good about texting back, about planning our weekends, about showing up for the little things. But during that phase, she was distant. Distracted. There were 3 camping trips with friends from work. Trips I wasn't invited to, not even once. She said it was a work bonding thing, no plus ones. And I believed her, like an idiot. Now, I'm sitting in this booth, watching the waitress refill my coffee, trying to remember the details of those weekends. What did she say? Who did she go with? Why didn't I press her harder? Because I trusted her. That's why. I checked the time and realized I'd better head to the church. Couldn't be late for Julia's big day, even if the taste in my mouth was sour. The church was beautiful, tall stained glass windows, white roses on every pew, the kind of place you picture when someone says storybook wedding. I sat near the middle, just close enough to seem supportive, just far enough to keep a little distance. The ceremony started, and there she was, Melissa, walking down the aisle in her bridesmaid dress like nothing had happened. She looked gorgeous, glowing even. And I felt like I was watching a stranger. A beautiful stranger who knew exactly how to smile at the right time and hide the truth behind her eyes. After the ceremony, they lined everyone up to greet the bride and groom. I walked down the line, shaking hands, giving hugs, doing my best impression of a man who wasn't mentally unraveling. Then I saw him. Ian. The best man. Tall, slick, that smarmy confidence that guys like him wear like a second skin. Melissa wasn't standing next to him, she was off to the side with another guy I didn't recognize, but I clocked Ian immediately. He looked me in the eye and smiled like we were old friends. I shook his hand. Firm. Polite. Maybe a little too firm. Maybe I held it for a second longer than necessary. Just enough to let him know I knew. I didn't say a word. Then came the reception. It took them forever to arrive, photos, you know, but eventually the wedding party trickled in, all laughter and champagne. Melissa slid into the seat next to me. She kissed my cheek, asked if I'd been enjoying myself, like everything was normal. I nodded. Yeah. It's nice. But she wasn't done. She leaned in, lowered her voice. So, just a heads up. There's a wedding party dance. All the bridesmaids and groomsmen are paired off. I'm dancing with Ian. I blinked. Weren't you paired with someone else? She shrugged like it was nothing. The maid of honor's married to her partner. They wanted to dance together, so we switched. And there it was again. That little twist in my gut. Right, I said. I didn't want to make a scene. Not here. Not on Julia's day. So I said nothing more. I didn't even drink, though God knows I wanted to. But I'm self-aware enough to know I get mean when I'm drunk. Angry. And this wasn't the place. The music started. People laughed, clapped, raised their glasses. Then I saw him, Ian, walking toward our table like he owned the damn room. He extended a hand to Melissa. She smiled and took it. They walked onto the dance floor together. I stared at my plate. Counted the seconds. Refused to look up. I could hear them laughing from where I sat, the soft murmur of shared jokes and memories that I wasn't part of. When the dance ended, she returned. But not alone. He came back with her. They were still laughing, still reminiscing about old times like I wasn't even there. Melissa beamed at him, then turned to me. Babe, you remember Ian, right? She didn't even give me time to respond before launching into introductions. I shook his hand again, colder this time. My smile barely registered. But it didn't seem to faze him. He pulled up a chair and sat down like he belonged. They talked. About college. About parties. About music festivals and some dive bar that served wings so spicy Melissa once cried. I sat there in silence. Watching. Listening. Burning. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I excused myself and walked to the bathroom. Needed air. Needed space. Needed to scream into a void that wouldn't scream back. When I returned, he was gone. She decided to tell me that she thought I was being rude, which, at that moment, was about the last thing I needed to hear. Her tone wasn't angry exactly, more annoyed, like she was scolding a child for embarrassing her in public. And that stung. A lot. I kept my voice steady. This isn't the time or place to get into it, I said, carefully holding back the swell of frustration bubbling just below the surface. But we will talk later. She sighed like I was being unreasonable, then flicked a glance toward the dance floor where people were starting to loosen up. I'm going to change out of this dress, she muttered. When I get back, I'm telling my sister we're leaving. You've ruined my night. But I won't let you ruin hers. I held my breath for a beat before answering. I don't want to ruin anyone's day. Least of all your sister's. I'm perfectly capable of blending into the background until it's over. I can stay out of your way. She didn't respond, just turned on her heel and left. I sat there, frozen in my seat, heart pounding like I was the one who had confessed to an old hookup. My mind replayed the conversation, the subtle jabs, the dismissiveness. I had shaken the guy's hand. I hadn't made a scene. I had done everything right, or at least, everything quietly. So why did it feel like I was the villain? When she returned in her change of clothes, a pale blue sundress, her hair now loosely tied back, I could immediately tell she was still fuming. Her nostrils flared when she caught sight of me sitting alone at our table, and she walked over with the kind of exaggerated calm that screams barely contained anger. You look miserable, she said, arms folded. I haven't said a word since you left, I replied, keeping my voice low, so I'm not sure what exactly you're upset about now. It's not what you're doing, she snapped. It's the way you're doing it. You're sitting there like a sulking statue. Everyone can tell you're mad. You're making people uncomfortable. People? Or just you? I asked, and instantly regretted it. She glared at me like I'd slapped her. You know what, she said, her voice rising slightly, if you can't act like a decent person, maybe you should leave. Honestly, you're acting like some jealous silverback gorilla ready to beat your chest and challenge anyone who comes near me. I blinked at her, stunned. Did you seriously just compare me to a gorilla? She shrugged. If the shoe fits. I took a deep breath, trying to push down the rage. I came in my own car. I can leave, or I can stay. You make the call. I didn't come here to ruin anything. I came to support you and your sister." She looked away, chewing her lip for a second before saying, "Fine. Stay. But please, try not to look like you wanted to punch someone in the face." I watched her walk away and immediately felt a surge of something between shame and indignation. I hadn't done anything wrong. Hadn't raised my voice. Hadn't stormed off. I was being punished for being uncomfortable, and she hadn't even tried to understand why. I took a deep breath and headed back inside, choosing a seat where I could blend into the crowd. I kept to myself, occasionally sipping from a glass of water, my appetite long gone. Her brother found me first. "Hey man, you alright?" I shrugged. "Yeah. Just not in a party mood, I guess." He gave me a knowing look but didn't push. We chatted for a while about safe topics, his new job, a recent vacation he took with his girlfriend, football. The noise around us swelled as more guests poured in, laughter and clinking glasses bouncing off the hall walls. Eventually, Jason got pulled into a group photo, and I found myself alone again. I drifted back toward our table, where her grandmother was now sitting alone, carefully spooning cake into her mouth. She looked up and gave me a warm smile. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world," she said, patting the seat next to her. I smiled back and took the seat. "It's been a long day." "It's always something at weddings," she said with a chuckle. "Someone cries, someone drinks too much, someone dances like a fool. But it's all part of the show." I nodded. "Just didn't expect the show to feel so personal, I guess." She looked at me carefully, her eyes narrowing a little. "My granddaughter can be fiery. But she means well. You know that, right?" I didn't answer immediately. I just looked down at the tablecloth, tracing the embroidered patterns with my fingertip. She reached out and gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "Marriage is hard. It takes a thick skin and a soft heart. Don't let one bad day twist up the good ones." I smiled, grateful for the comfort but unsure if it applied. This didn't feel like a bad day. It felt like a revelation, a peek behind the curtain I didn't ask for. As she turned her attention back to her cake, I leaned back in my chair and scanned the room. My wife was across the hall laughing with a group of cousins. The best man was nowhere to be seen. Maybe he got the hint. Or maybe he just had better things to do. Either way, for a brief moment, the tension in my chest loosened. But the night was far from over. We left the reception at the same time, the heavy silence between us lingering like fog in the cab of her car. I drove separately, something I was thankful for now. It gave me the space to breathe, to think, to not explode. But even as I drove home, my mind wasn't clear. I didn't blast music or call anyone. I just drove in complete silence, hands locked tight on the steering wheel, knuckles pale. I beat her home by about 2 minutes. Just enough time to kick off my shoes and settle into the living room chair we bought together at some furniture warehouse 3 years ago. Funny how much effort we put into building a life, a home. And now it all felt like something had cracked beneath the surface. Not broken yet, but cracked. Deep enough that I couldn't pretend not to see it. The door opened. She stepped in, already keyed up like she knew it was coming. No hesitation. No pleasantries. No fake smiles. "So?" she asked, tossing her purse onto the table by the door. "You want to talk?" I nodded, slowly, calmly. "Yeah. I want to hear the story again. About him." She narrowed her eyes, as if preparing for an ambush, but still said it the exact same way she had that morning. Word for word. Like a rehearsed speech. A script she told herself 100 times to lessen the guilt. When she finished, I looked at her. Not glaring. Just staring like I was seeing a stranger for the first time. "Are you sure about the time frame?" I asked. She paused. Blinked. "Yeah. I'm sure." I leaned forward, elbows on knees. "We've been together for 5 years. You said this thing with him happened 5 years ago." That's when it happened. The moment the ground shifted beneath me. She didn't flinch. Didn't get wide-eyed. Didn't sputter a denial. She just looked me in the eyes and said, plainly, "I know." Silence again. But this time it wasn't mine. "You know?" She crossed her arms. Leaned against the wall like this was a damn casual conversation. "Yeah. I knew we were together. It was a rough time for us, you know? We were fighting all the time, you were working those night shifts, and I felt alone. I didn't plan it. It just happened." "It just happened?" My voice cracked slightly. I hated that. Hated sounding weak. Look, she sighed. We worked together. It was just a physical thing. It never meant anything. I wasn't in love with him. I never even thought about leaving you. It was a few weekends, that's it. A few weekends? Don't do this, she snapped. Don't twist it. I'm being honest with you now. You should be thanking me for that. Thanking her? That was rich. I stood up, pacing. So you cheated on me, and you think the real takeaway here is that I should be grateful you waited 5 years to confess? She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. No. I'm being betrayed. That set her off. Oh, come on. This was years ago. We weren't married. We were barely holding it together. It didn't mean anything. Then why tell me now? She paused again. For a second, I thought I saw regret. But it passed quickly. Because he was in the wedding party. I didn't want you to hear it from someone else. I didn't want to blindside you. You mean like you did 5 years ago? That hit a nerve. She pushed off the wall, took a step toward me. Look. I told you. I made a mistake. I owned up to it. You want me to beg? To cry? What do you want, huh? You want me to be miserable so you feel better? No, I said, my voice lower now. I want you to feel something. I want you to acknowledge that you did real damage to something we were building. That this matters. She scoffed. It doesn't matter. It does to me. That started the argument. The real one. No more passive sighs or cold glances. It was shouting. Name-calling. Accusations. She told me I was acting like a child. That I was overreacting. That she was tired of being punished for something that happened in the past. But to me, it wasn't the past. Not when the person I trusted most had decided I wasn't enough for a few weekends of her life. Not when she carried on beside me like nothing happened. Laughed with me. Slept next to me. Told me she loved me with the same mouth she used to lie. And worse, not when she felt no guilt. When she called me childish, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was such a classic move. Flip the blame. Make me feel like I was the problem for reacting. For caring. That was her thing. Always needing to be the bigger person. The wise one. But sometimes I wondered if that wasn't just her armor for never admitting when she was wrong. I told her I needed time. To think. To process. I wasn't even sure what I wanted yet. She shut that down quick. There's nothing to think about, she said. We love each other. This doesn't change anything. But it did. God help me, it changed everything. That was 3 weeks ago and I still can't shake the weight of it. It lingers in everything, in the quiet spaces between us, in the way her hand brushes against mine and I flinch just a little. I've been trying to move forward, to remind myself that this happened years ago, that we're married now, that she chose me. But every time I try to bury it, the memory rises like bile in my throat. She's been trying. I'll give her that. Over the past few days, she's asked me, gently at first, then more insistently, to talk to her. To let her explain again, to ask me how I feel, to bridge whatever chasm is growing between us. And yet, every time she speaks, all I hear is that night echoing in my head. It was just a physical thing. We weren't in a great place. I never had feelings for him. It hurts more because she said it so easily. There was no struggle, no shame in her voice. Just matter-of-fact delivery, like she was relaying the weather report. Maybe that's what crushed me the most, not even the fact that she cheated, but that she didn't seem broken by it. I wanted to see regret, not just for the act but for what it did to me. Instead, I got logic. Cold, detached logic. I've been sleeping on the couch. Not because she asked me to, but because the bed doesn't feel like mine anymore. It feels like a place where ghosts lie down beside us. Where I close my eyes and see her in someone else's arms. Sometimes, in the dark, I try to reason with myself. I list the facts like I'm presenting a case to a jury. It was years ago. We weren't married. She's been faithful ever since. We have a good life together. She told you because she didn't want you to be blindsided. You should be grateful. But the heart isn't a jury. The heart is a wounded animal. And right now, mine is cowering in a corner, licking its wounds and growling when anyone comes close. I don't want to see her as the villain. She's not. She's kind, she's smart, she's funny in that sarcastic way that used to drive me wild. She makes me soup when I'm sick and still kisses my forehead when I leave for work. But she also had a fling. A meaningless, casual, Just a few weekends kind of fling. And she carried that secret into our marriage like a ticking time bomb. Part of me wonders if it would have been better not to know. If ignorance truly is bliss. But then I remember the look on her face when she told me, that mixture of calm and resignation. Like she knew it would hurt but believed I'd get over it. Like she assumed our foundation was strong enough to weather this storm. Was it? Is it? Now I feel like a man standing on a frozen lake, hearing cracks underfoot, unsure whether to run or stay perfectly still. And to make things more complicated, there's the guilt. Guilt that I'm dragging this out. Guilt that I'm making her pay over and over again for something she can undo. Guilt that I still love her, despite it all. But love isn't the issue. Trust is. And trust, once fractured, isn't easily mended. I wish I had some clarity. Some sign. I've read online forums, watched videos, tried to find stories like mine. Some men left. Some stayed. Some forgave. Some couldn't. I don't know which one I'll be. All I know is that right now, I'm caught in this endless loop of anger and sorrow, hope and resentment. I want to scream at her. I want to wrap my arms around her. I want to run. I want to stay. I want to be able to hate her and flip that switch that tells me I'm being walked on and I'm a sucker. But it's just very hard for me to do that, because I still love her. And this is ripping me apart. Edit 1. First I want to clarify something from my first narration that I really did not spell out very well. It doesn't have any real bearing on anything, but for some reason it bugs me that I made this part sort of murky. The maid of honor, not my wife, was married to the groomsman who my wife walked down the aisle with. There were some people who felt my wife was trying to arrange the dance, but I do know for a fact that this part was legit. However, it doesn't mean she didn't try and offer to let them dance or any other form of manipulation, but I just wanted to try and clear that part up a little. To be blunt, I'm confused. Update 1. Here is what has happened of any consequence. She finally came to the realization that I was not going to just get over this. This then brought her to the realization that I might want out of the marriage. This then brought on a near nervous breakdown from her. I thought she was going to try to manipulate me like that, and believe me, I was taking those words to heart when I thought she was having crocodile tears. But it soon became apparent to me that she wasn't acting or faking. She was having a legitimate panic attack. This led to an ER visit, and that led to an overnight stay in the hospital, and then to new medications and a scheduled follow-up with her doctor for later next week. This brought her family into it, and that in turn led to long conversations all the way around. When we got home, with her family in tow, I asked what she wanted to do since there was a house full of people, and she said she wanted to be with her mom for a while. That was fine with me, as I had no desire to hang around all day with her dad or sister, so I said I was going to go finish up something at work and would be home later. 2 hours after I get there, I get a text from her begging me to please come home and that she really needs me to talk with her. So I finish up what I was doing and head home. I am greeted on my own front porch by her dad, who asks if he can talk to me for a minute. My anger level was already somewhat high, but I was ready to go to war if she had dumped a shit sack of lies on me with her dad. I mean, it's not like he and I are best friends and shit, but I've never had a bad moment with him, so I really wasn't going to be happy about being the bastard who broke his baby's heart. We sat on our deck chairs and he fucking floored me with his opening salvo. I was expecting to hear anything but what he said. He said that she told them what had happened, and that he wanted to apologize to me. Because he said that he felt like he did a really shitty job as a parent, and that this mindset that she had was really a creation of her mother's, and that while he loved both of them, he said they were wrong, and he had told his wife years ago that telling the girls that whatever happens before marriage doesn't count was a horrible idea and value system to install in them. He then said that he wasn't there to stand up for what his daughter did, but he just wanted me to be aware that what she was saying and how she was acting was simply because she honestly believed that being married was an entirely different life, and that they, mom and dad, had romanticized marriage to the point that she wasn't understanding real life. Basically, he was kind of throwing his wife under the bus, but again, this is not what I was expecting at all. We shook hands and he said that no matter what I decided, he still thought very highly of me, which honestly made me feel really good for that moment. I then went inside and my wife is curled up in a ball on her mom's lap, and you can tell she has been crying the entire time I've been gone. Mom gets up and comes and hugs me and tells me she is sorry and that she loves me and she is praying that we can work this out. My wife is laid out on the couch at this point. Her mom and dad leave and she sits there looking at me and crying. Okay, this is where I'm going to piss off everybody and just tell you that I couldn't take it. I went to her, And we hugged for a long time, with her telling me over and over how sorry she was. Hey, I know it was the weak thing to do, but again I have to say in my defense that just before this incident occurred, I loved her with all of my heart and would have done anything to not see her in pain. Whatever she had done, I still didn't want to see her like that. Look, it's very possible that she was putting on an Oscar-worthy acting job, but I don't honestly think so. She really seemed broken at that point in time. After a while, when she calmed down, I asked her what she wanted me to come home and talk about, and she said she wanted to get everything out in the open, so I didn't feel like I was being lied to or manipulated. So she wanted me to ask her questions, and I wish I had written down a list, but I came up with a few off the top of my head. She was brutally honest with me, and some of the questions I asked I probably shouldn't have because now the mental image is stuck in there, but honestly it was there anyway. I just now have confirmation. First, I asked for dates, or at the very least approximate dates. I didn't tell her about the engagement concern I had, because I didn't want her to change stories. And she remembered exactly when they occurred. Fortunately, this happened a little earlier in our relationship than she told me initially, and so we were not engaged when this happened. I can't tell you what a relief that was, because I became physically ill when I thought about that. Second, I asked how many times. She went overboard with this, because instead of just telling me how many different dates, she decided to tell me how many times there was penetration. She wasn't doing it to be mean, she honestly thought that is what I wanted to know. This part of the conversation did not help me any at all, and in fact almost broke me down. In truth, it wasn't that often, and in fact there were really only 3 different days it happened on, but there were several times during those 3 days. Then came the hard part. Why did she do it? Okay, again, I'm not the most manly of men and I am ashamed to admit this, but I couldn't get this out without starting to cry. I asked, why wasn't I good enough? Why him? Why did she not just leave me? It was her turn to hold me, because at this point everything came rushing at me. Her telling me having to watch them laugh with each other, her now telling me how many times they did it and where they did it. She talked during this, but to this moment I have no idea what she said. I was too upset, and honestly nothing she was going to say was going to make a bit of difference anyway. But after I composed myself, I simply told her that the betrayal was horrible, but honestly her response to me when I found out was just as bad, if not worse. She agreed with me and she apologized for calling me immature. She said that she honestly believed that it wouldn't matter to me now, because we were married. When she said this, my blood started to boil again. I started to say something about it, but she jumped in and said that after talking with her parents, she now sees that this was very wrong of her and that cheating is cheating, but she still feels like that our happiness that we have shared since being married should count for something. I then replied that I kind of felt like that happiness was built on a lie. This led to another breakdown on her part and almost another ER visit. But between Ativan and having her breath into a paper sack, we got her calmed down. I let her sleep the rest of the night, feeling like emotionally we were both tired, but come Sunday we were talking again. By this time I wasn't as sympathetic as I had been when we got home from the ER. I told her that I thought her introducing him to me was shitty. Me having to watch her dance with him was extra shitty, and the fact that she only told me because she was going to get caught was an elite level of shitty. Which then I demanded to know, why did she think I would find out, and how many of the fucking people at the wedding knew besides me? Apparently, he knew all along. But what shocked me even more was that my best friend, who is now my brother-in-law, also knew. And because he knew, her sister found out too. She admitted she was terrified her sister would be the one to spill the truth to me. I asked her how often she sees this guy now. She said the wedding was the first time she had seen him in 4 years. That irritated me more. So I pressed further, did anything happen between them in the lead up to the wedding? Her reaction was defensive, acting like the very idea of her cheating now that we were married was absurd. That frustrated me. It felt like she was living in her own version of reality, like Married Planet, where the rules of honesty and consequences just don't apply. I needed to step out to clear my head before things got worse. After cooling off, I came back home, determined to stay civil and at least try to talk it through. Eventually, she asked what she could do to help me move past all this. It might not sound like much, but it was actually the first time she truly offered to help me emotionally, so I appreciated that. I told her honestly that I didn't know if there was anything she could do, or if I'd ever get over it. She said she just didn't want to see me hurting, and she hopes that in time, I can learn to see her for who she is now, not who she was back then. She promised that since the day we got married, she's been completely faithful, and she swore she would never break her vows. I sarcastically thanked her, which I admit wasn't the most mature thing to do. I then asked for a moratorium from further talks till at least Wednesday. I have 2 projects I have to get done and honestly I'm just exhausted and know I have no clue of what I want to do. I shift between periods of red-hot anger where I want to kick her out and then periods of deep emotional turmoil where I want to just forget this and move forward with her. Yes, I know this is not what anyone wanted to hear and no, I'm not proud to type it, but it is what it is at the moment. Update 2. As you know, I asked to just drop it till last night so I could focus on a job-related item I had to get done. She kept her word about it, but I could tell she was very emotional and honestly nervous. She is taking some strong benzodiazepines for her anxiety, but even as strong as it is I can still see how anxious she had been. I wasn't intentionally trying to punish her, in fact quite the opposite, I really was trying to give her a break as much as me. But she told me last night that not holding her or showing any real affection towards her was almost torture to her. Well, last night finally arrived and we had what my dad always called a come to Jesus meeting. I got home from work and I brought dinner so there would be no distractions of cleanup or anything. We started talking around 6 and finally ended around 2-ish. In that time frame we laid out a lot of issues that have been present and what or if we are both willing to do to move forward. Long story short, starting today I am living with my brother for the next few, not sure. She is understandably upset by all of this and I am making an effort to communicate openly with her so she does not feel abandoned or neglected. If you're wondering how we got from talking to me living with my brother, here it is in a nutshell. I know this is not going to make several of you very happy, but here is where I am going with this. I want to save my marriage, but I can't do it living what I feel was somewhat a lie. I know she never intended to lie once we were married, but when I sat down and thought about this one question, would I have stayed with her if I had known at the time she did this? Each and every time I answered no. So to me she took away my ability to choose whether or not I wanted to continue, and we built the next few years based on the foundation of something that wasn't quite true. However, the truth is, we still built something. Sometimes foundations can be repaired and sometimes you have to tear them down to build new on. This is what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping to shake things up enough for both of us so that we can start over. Like I said in the very first narration, our marriage until this point had been what I would consider to be perfect, or as perfect as any one thing can be. But there were some very troubling things that occurred due to this, and here is a brief synopsis of our talk. I laid out the fact that while I absolutely was upset about the cheating, and yes, I still consider it cheating, which she has now come to realize that this is the way it is and is going to be considered. I was equally upset by her lack of consideration for my feelings on this. I told her that I resented being told I was immature and a child for something that objectively speaking I had every right to be upset about. Her response was to apologize and tell me she was in the wrong, and that while she admits fault and sees what I'm saying, that at the time she had convinced herself that because we were married that I was wrong to be upset about something that happened beforehand, but she now sees where this is wrong. I then told her that I felt very disrespected by her associating with this guy right in front of me, and that I felt humiliated having to shake his hand. Her response was to once again apologize, and she said that in her mind at the time she felt like she was trying to show me that there was nothing there. She said she felt like if she avoided him or acted shady around him that I would be more upset. I told her she was wrong. She said that out of all of the things, this is the one that has hit her the most in the face, because even her sister has told her how poor this was for her to do to me, and she was deeply hurt by this because it had hurt me, which she never wanted to do. I then talked about her lack of remorse over being with someone else while we were together. Her only response was to say that she was very sorry, how that at the time she just used very poor judgment, and if she could go back and change the past she would. Then came the talk that got the most discussion. How I felt like she really wasn't sorry for anything, but that she was just sorry that I didn't just shrug my shoulders and say that everything was going to be okay. That there were going to be repercussions for what I considered to be an act of betrayal, and then an act of not caring about me. I'll give her full credit here. She was brutally honest about this, and at least she was, so we didn't have to spend hours trying to work our way around it. She admitted that when we got home after the event she started to realize that I wasn't going to let this go, and then as time went on she knew that this was an issue. Her first instinct was to be mad at me for being mad at her. But then realized even from her own point of view how stupid that was. But again she had it beat into her head that she was my wife and that I should easily forgive and forget something that happened way before we were married. She also admitted that when it became real she frankly outright panicked, thinking about losing her marriage. Nobody on either side of her family is divorced, so she could be the first, and she admitted to that being a big factor in her panic attack. But as the week has progressed and she has spoken more to her family, she is seeing that what she has put in her mind about marriage isn't the end-all be-all she thought it was. She also did really feel bad about bringing the guy around to me. However, you will notice, which I did too, that she never said she felt guilty about being with him. Now I want everyone to know this as well. What I have given you from above is a brief synopsis of events. She sounds like a robot in this version, and believe me, she was not. There were lots of tears, real honest tears. I've seen her "oh woe as me" tears before, so I know the difference. There were a few curse words, and there were even moments of pleading and begging. As I said, this went on for 8-ish hours, so by the time we were done she was physically exhausted. I have set out the following steps if we are to reconcile, and it is totally up to her if she wants to stay together. She is very adamant about staying together, by the way. First, I don't care how illogical it seems, she is to never have contact with him again. This is an absolute for me and a deal breaker, and I was absolutely clear on this. Second, we have to have couples therapy. Third, while I am living with my brother, we are still legally married, and this is not an invitation or excuse for either of us to see anyone else. Again, deal breaker in a second if either of us uses this as an excuse. Believe me, I will not, and I don't believe she will either. Fourth, we will start over, to a point. I have to view her differently now. Even if I didn't want to, I can't just forget that she chose to cheat. So that's where we are now. I know that is not what some of you wanted, but ultimately I have to go with what I believe will make me happiest in the long run. My head says be aware, and I am going to guard my heart for a long time, but my heart is still in love with her. We are going out on a date Friday night, which she is really looking forward to. I have no idea how long I will be with my brother. Hell, I may not make it past Friday, but if nothing else, I feel like I have some control here, which I felt prior to the talk I had almost none. In the end, I held her for a long time and we slept together. I do not want a broken woman. Right now that is kind of what she is. I want her to be my partner for a life, but I do want her to know that to be a partner she has to equally care about my feelings as I do hers. P.S. I had to do some real hard thinking about my new brother-in-law. Again, I've only met him a few times and he seems like a nice enough guy, but at the end of it all he certainly was aware of the issue. But just to keep peace in the family, I'm going to not make a stink about him, because that will certainly make every holiday tough going forward. As long as he never mentions the incident or the guy ever again to or around me, I can live with it. Update 3. I've been staying with my brother for a little over a month. I cannot say enough nice words about him. He has bent over backwards to help me, and I've come to appreciate him in a whole new way. Growing up we were close, but never really close, if you know what I mean. This has shown me that our bond is much stronger than I ever imagined it was. The big news is that I have delivered her with divorce papers. Now, before those of you who wanted me to dump or jump for joy, let me explain something. I went to a divorce lawyer and explained everything, including the fact that I did not want to go through with the divorce but wanted everything in place just in case. He drew up a divorce decree and made 3 copies. One he kept on file, one for her and one for me. I decided to take the paperwork to her myself because I knew she would be upset and I wanted to explain to her what was happening. I gave her the paperwork in a manila envelope and explained what it was before she opened it. I also made very clear to her that I was not going to do anything with it unless we both failed to meet the conditions we both agreed upon. I explained that I was committed to us, but I really needed to see that we were headed in the right direction and that this was only there as a standby in case she didn't think I was serious. Well, this did not go over as well as I had hoped, and in retrospect this was a mistake on my part. She had been doing everything in her power prior to that to live up to the agreement. We had been out on several dates prior to this that were great for both of us. In other words, my timing sucked. My intention was good, but it did make it look like I was not acknowledging the steps she was taking to make this work. This led to another giant anxiety attack that we could not get under control with her meds, so off to the ER we went again. This time they gave her a shot and sent her home, and we both agreed that we would keep her family out of it this time. I stayed with her for 2 days just to make sure she was okay. This of course came up in our counseling session, and well, let's just say that I came across looking like a manipulative asshole, which again in retrospect I was. I ended up taking my copy and her copy and tearing it up in front of her. She doesn't know there is a 3rd copy, but I plan on having him discard that as well. So now I pretty much feel like a monster because the look on her face when she got the divorce papers was something I never want to see again. She was so happy to see me that day, and then I gave her that, and then instant combination of sadness and terror. Other than that bump in the road, things have actually been going very well. Well enough in fact that I am moving back home this weekend. My brother has been great, but I am cramping his style no matter what he says. It's been fun playing Xbox every night, though I won't deny it. But mostly I am going home because she has done everything I have asked of her and I have put her through hell. I think she's paid a steep enough price and I know she knows how serious this was. Also, in case I didn't mention this before, I do love her. She made a very stupid selfish mistake, but it was years ago and she had been almost the perfect wife up until that discovery. So this should be it. We are not cured or healed by any sense of the imagination, but we are on our way and it's just going to take time, patience and understanding.